The phone rang just as I was settling onto the couch. A cold beer in my hand, and the evening news flickering on the television. It was late past 10, and the caller ID showed an unknown number. Usually I'd ignore it, but something made me pick up. "Hello," I said, my voice thick with the day's weariness. "Is this John Miller?" a deep official voice asked. "Yes, speaking." My mind instantly started to race. Had something happened to my parents? A medical emergency? "This is Officer Thompson, Meadowbrook Police Department. We're calling about your vehicle, a grey Honda Civic, license plate JKL 789. My heart jumped into my throat. My car. I'd parked it in our driveway hours ago, just like any other day. "My car? What about it? Is it okay?" "Mr. Miller, we found your vehicle." His tone was flat, professional, but held an edge I couldn't quite decipher. It was located near the old quarry road, about 20 minutes out of town. Relief washed over me, then confusion. Found? Was it stolen? I didn't report it stolen. There was a pause on the other end, a slight hesitation that felt too long. "No, sir. We received a report of a stolen vehicle earlier this evening. A concerned citizen called it in." A concerned citizen? That was weird. Who would report my car stolen if not me? Maybe Sarah had done it as a joke. Her friends Lisa and Chloe were always pulling pranks. They were a wild bunch, always scheming. Remember that time they swapped out all the sugar in the pantry for salt? Sarah had found it hilarious, though I'd nearly choked on my morning coffee. They'd once even changed all the photos in our frames to pictures of their cats. It was annoying but harmless fun. This felt different though, far too serious. A concerned citizen. I repeated, trying to process this. "Do you know who it was?" "Can't disclose that at this time, sir, but T here is something else." Officer Thompson's voice grew even graver. "When we located your vehicle, there was someone inside it." My stomach dropped. "Someone inside?" "Not Sarah. She was upstairs getting ready for bed. Maybe one of her friends, part of the prank." Why would they be in my car reported stolen out by the quarry? That made no sense. This wasn't just a sugar for salt switch. This was police involvement. This was serious. Someone was inside? I asked, my voice barely a whisper now. "Who? Was it one of my wife's friends? Lisa or Chloe, maybe?" I tried to make it sound light, like I was in on the joke, even though a cold dread was spreading through my chest. The officer cleared his throat. "No, sir. It wasn't Lisa or Chloe." The individual identified himself as Mark Henderson. Mark Henderson. The name hit me like a physical blow. Mark Henderson. I knew that name. I didn't know him personally, not in the way you know a friend or a colleague, but I knew the name. It was a name I'd heard Sarah mention a few times over the last couple of months, always casually. Oh, Mark from the gym was talking about this new workout routine. Or Mark from the book club recommended this author. She'd always made it sound so innocuous, so incidental. Just another acquaintance. My grip tightened on the phone. My knuckles went white. Mark Henderson? I repeated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Yes, sir. He's currently at the station. We need you to come down and identify your vehicle and provide a statement." "And Mr. Miller," he added, his voice lowering, "it might be a good idea to have your wife accompany you." Mr. Henderson mentioned her name several times during our questioning. The world tilted. The faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant rumble of a car on the street. The soft glow of the television screen. Everything faded into a dull background noise. Mark Henderson. In my car. Reported stolen. Sarah's name mentioned. It wasn't a prank. It was something far, far worse. A knot formed in my stomach, pulling tighter and tighter until I felt sick. My mind raced, trying to find an innocent explanation. Maybe he'd borrowed the car. But why would he borrow it and then get reported stolen? Why would Sarah's name come up? The pieces didn't fit. They clashed, forming a horrifying picture I didn't want to see. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. My hands started to tremble. I knew, deep down, what this meant. I just didn't want to admit it. The simple, comfortable life I thought I had, the secure marriage, the trust I'd placed in Sarah. It all felt like it was crumbling, dissolving into dust. "I'll be right there," I choked out, the words barely audible. I hung up the phone, the silence of the room suddenly deafening. The beer sat on the table, forgotten. The news continued its drone on the television, but I couldn't hear it, couldn't see it. All I could see was Mark Henderson's name, echoing in my mind, and the chilling implication of why he was in my car, why Sarah's name was involved. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. I had to tell Sarah. The thought made my stomach churn even more. How do you tell your wife that the police found another man in your car? A man she knows. A man who mentioned her name? How do you even begin to have that conversation? I walked towards the stairs, each step heavy, each breath a struggle. My heart was pounding, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, signaling the end of everything I thought I knew. This wasn't a prank. This was a nightmare. The drive to the police station was a blur of streetlights and numb silence. Sarah sat beside me, pale and tight-lipped. When I told her what Officer Thompson said, her initial reaction was confusion. Then, a flash of anger. "My friends did what? Reported your car stolen? That's not funny, John. They've gone too far this time." She kept repeating that it must be a joke, a misunderstanding. But her eyes, usually so vibrant, held a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Fear? Guilt? I didn't dare articulate my own sickening suspicions aloud. I just drove, gripping the steering wheel, my mind a churning mess of questions and worst-case scenario. The Meadowbrook Police Department wasn't a huge place. Just a squat brick building tucked between the town hall and the library. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed, casting a stark, cold glow over the waiting area. A few officers moved through the hallways, their footsteps echoing. The air smelled faintly of stale coffee and something metallic, like cleaning solution. My stomach knotted tighter. Officer Thompson, a man with a tired face and kind eyes that didn't quite match his serious demeanor, met us at the desk. He nodded to Sarah, then focused on me. "Mr. Miller, thanks for coming in so quickly." "What's going on, officer?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "My wife says her friends probably pulled some kind of prank. Is that what happened?" I looked at Sarah, hoping for a sign, any sign, that this was just an elaborate, twisted joke. Officer Thompson sighed. He led us to a small interview room, stark and functional, with a metal table and 3 chairs. He sat opposite us, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller," he began, his voice calm but firm. "We received a call from a Miss Lisa Peterson at around 9:15 p.m., reporting a gray Honda Civic stolen from your residence." She provided the license plate number and a description of the car. She stated she saw an unknown man driving away in it. Lisa. So it was Lisa. My blood ran cold. Lisa, Sarah's closest friend. the ringleader of the pranks, but this was beyond a prank. This was involving the police, a felony charge for whoever was driving the car. "Lisa," Sarah whispered, her face draining of color. Why would Lisa do something like that? Her voice was laced with a feigned indignation, but it sounded hollow to my ears. "We located the vehicle, as I said, near the old quarry road," Officer Thompson continued, ignoring Sarah's interruption. "And inside we found Mr. Mark Henderson. He was in the driver's seat. The vehicle was parked." My gaze darted to Sarah. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the officer, but her lower lip began to tremble almost imperceptibly. "When we questioned Mr. Henderson," the officer went on, "he stated that he was not stealing the vehicle. He claimed he was with Mrs. Miller, that she had given him permission to drive the car." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. My world, which had been teetering on the edge, now plunged into an abyss. My mind screamed in denial. This couldn't be happening. It was a mistake, a lie, a misunderstanding. What? I finally managed to croak out, my voice barely a sound. I stared at Sarah, my eyes pleading for her to deny it, to laugh it off, to tell me it was all a sick joke. Sarah wouldn't meet my gaze. She stared at the table, her face a mask of shame and terror. Officer Thompson looked directly at me. "Mr. Miller," Mr. Henderson stated that he and your wife were meeting regularly. He described the nature of their relationship as romantic. He paused, letting the full weight of the statement sink in. He said they had just been together, and she'd given him the keys to wait in the car while she went to grab something. And that's when the police arrived. The confession from the officer's lips felt like a physical blow. The air was sucked out of the room. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, a searing pain erupting behind my ribs. It wasn't just a casual acquaintance. It wasn't just him being in my car by chance. It was romantic. It was an affair. Every casual mention of Mark Henderson, every late night Sarah spent working late or out with the girls, every moment she seemed distant or preoccupied. It all rushed back, replaying in a horrifying montage. Pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming the most agonizing picture. "Is this true, Sarah?" I asked, my voice raw, broken. My eyes were fixed on her, begging for a different answer, even though I already knew the truth. She slowly lifted her head, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with a despair that mirrored my own, but was born of a different cause. Her lips trembled. "John," she whispered, a single tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. She didn't deny it. The lack of denial was all the confirmation I needed. My hands clenched into fists under the table. Police station, the officer, the stolen car report. It all faded into the background. All that mattered was the crushing weight of her silence, the implicit admission of betrayal. My wife, the woman I loved, the woman I trusted completely, had been having an affair. And her friends, in their twisted attempt at a prank, had accidentally exposed. The thought, the realization, was a knife twisting in my gut. My world had just shattered. The drive home was a silent, suffocating nightmare. Sarah sat huddled in the passenger seat, not looking at me, not saying a word. I felt an icy coldness spreading through my veins, mixed with a searing rage that threatened to consume me. The silence was louder than any scream. As soon as I pulled into the driveway, I cut the engine. The sudden quiet was unbearable. I turned to Sarah. "Get out." My voice was flat, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. She flinched, then slowly opened the door. We walked into the house. the familiar warmth of our home feeling alien and hostile. The comfortable sofa, the framed photos of our smiling faces, the kitchen where we'd shared so many meals, it all seemed to mock me. I stood in the living room, my back to her. I couldn't bear to look at her face. "Tell me," I demanded, my voice shaking. "Tell me everything." "From the beginning," Sarah hesitated. I could hear her ragged breathing behind me. "John, please." "It's not what you think." I spun around, my anger finally erupting. "Not what I think. The police just told me another man was found in my car. A man who claimed he was having a romantic relationship with you, and you couldn't even deny it." "What exactly am I supposed to think, Sarah?" Her face was pale, tears streaming down it now. "It was a mistake, John. A terrible, terrible mistake." "A mistake," I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "How long has this mistake been going on?" She wrung her hands. "A few months. It started subtly. He was at the gym, then the book club. He was just so attentive. He listened. And you've been so busy with work lately, I just felt neglected." Her words were like daggers. Neglected? Was that her excuse? My job paid for this house, this life we shared. I worked hard for us. The idea that she felt neglected enough to seek comfort, to seek intimacy with another man, stung deeper than anything. "So you decided to cheat on me?" I roared, my voice echoing in the silent house. "You decided to lie to me, to betray me, with some stranger you met at the gym?" "He's not a stranger," she cried, then instantly recoiled, realizing the implication. "I mean, he's not just some random hookup." "It wasn't like that, John. It was a connection." "A connection?" My jaw clenched. Connection that involved sneaking around behind my back. A connection that involved using my car, my property, for your secret rendezvous. The thought made me sick. The idea of them together in my car was a new level of violation. The car that was a stupid mistake, she sobbed. "We were just talking. He had his own car, but he parked it down the street so you wouldn't see it if you came home early. We were just sitting in your car because it was late, and then I told him to wait in there for a minute while I went inside to grab something. I didn't think you'd be awake. And then your friends reported it stolen, knowing he was in it." I asked, the pieces of this twisted puzzle slowly falling into place. "Did they know about him?" Sarah hesitated, her gaze dropping. "Yes. Lisa and Chloe, they found out a few weeks ago. They've been begging me to end it. They said they couldn't stand seeing me doing this to you, doing this to us. They said I was destroying everything." My head snapped back. So Lisa and Chloe knew. My wife's best friends. They knew about her affair. And they didn't say a word to me. Instead, they cooked up this insane plan. "So this prank was their way of helping you?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "By calling the police on my car, with your lover in it? That's their idea of intervention?" "They were desperate, John," Sarah pleaded, raising her voice. "They tried everything. They talked to me, they argued, they threatened to tell you. But I wouldn't listen. They said they had to do something drastic. They wanted you to find out. They thought if you found out this way, it would force me to stop, to face the consequences." The anger in me was so potent it tasted metallic. Not only had my wife betrayed me, but her closest friends, people I had welcomed into our home, had known about it for weeks and kept it from me. They had chosen to orchestrate a humiliating public exposure, rather than come to me directly. The layers of betrayal were almost too much to bear. "So they exposed your affair to the entire police department, because you wouldn't stop seeing him. I shook my head, disbelief warring with rage. And they didn't care that they were putting an innocent man, Mark Henderson, at risk of a felony charge for grand theft auto. Or that they were putting me through this public humiliation. Sarah had no answer. She just stood there crying, her shoulders shaking. "Get out," I said, my voice quiet but firm. The rage was still there, but beneath it a profound weariness had set in. I was tired of the lies, tired of the pain. "Get out of my house, Sarah. John, please," she sobbed. Where would I go? "I don't care," I said, turning away from her. "Go to Lisa's, go to Chloe's, go to Mark's, just get out." Couldn't stand to look at her anymore. Couldn't stand to be in the same room. The image of her and Mark, alone in my car in the darkness, was burned into my mind. The air felt thick with her betrayal, suffocating me. The initial cracks had appeared, and now the entire structure of my life felt like it was crumbling. Sarah didn't leave that night. Not immediately. She went upstairs, and I heard the muffled sounds of her crying. I stayed downstairs, pacing the living room, the anger and despair, a hot-churning mess inside me. Sleep was impossible. Every shadow seemed to mock me. Every silence screamed her betrayal. Around dawn I heard her come down. She was dressed, her eyes swollen and red. She carried a small duffel bag. She paused at the living room entrance, looking at me. I didn't say anything. I just watched her. "I'm going to Lisa's," she said, her voice thin and reedy. "I'll call you later to talk." I just nodded, unable to speak. The silence was my answer. I watched her walk out, the click of the lock echoing in the empty house. And then I truly broke down. The rage gave way to an overwhelming wave of grief. I sank onto the floor, pulling my knees to my chest, and let the sobs tear through me. It wasn't just a marriage that was dying. It was a future, a shared dream, a lifetime of plans. A few hours later, Officer Thompson called. He wanted Sarah to come in to give a formal statement, and he also wanted to clarify a few things with me. I told him Sarah wasn't here, that she'd left. He seemed to understand, his tone sympathetic. When Sarah finally called, her voice was shaky. "John, I am at the station. They want to know everything." "Then tell them everything, Sarah," I said, my voice still hoarse from crying. "Tell them the truth for once." Later that day she came back to the house, but only to pack more things. I stayed in the kitchen, trying to distract myself by cleaning, though my hands trembled too much to do anything properly. She moved through the house like a ghost, gathering clothes, toiletries, a few books. "They asked me about everything," she said, appearing in the kitchen doorway, her voice flat. "About Mark, about how long, about the car." "And what did you tell them?" I asked, not looking at. "Truth, or most of it. I told them it was consensual, that I knew Mark, that he wasn't stealing the car, that it was a misunderstanding with my friends." They were pretty mad at Lisa and Chloe for making a false report, but they said since it was a domestic issue and no theft actually occurred, they wouldn't press charges against Mark. They just lectured us all. "Lectured us all," I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping. "So Mark gets off scot-free, you get a lecture, and I get my life blown up. Sounds fair," she flinched. "John, please, I know I messed up, I know I hurt you, but I want to fix this. Fix this." I finally turned to her, my eyes blazing. "How do you fix something like this, Sarah? How do you fix a betrayal that slices through the very core of who I am? How do you fix weeks, maybe months, of lies and sneaking around?" "It wasn't months, not really," she said, her voice small. "It was just starting to get serious the last few weeks. Before that, it was just talking. A few coffees. Nothing physical. Nothing physical. Until when, Sarah? I pressed. Until it became something you couldn't control. Until you were meeting him late at night in my car. Her eyes darted away. Look, I know to hear is no excuse. I was feeling lonely, overlooked. He made me feel special again. And I didn't. The question tore from me, full of pain and self-doubt. No, not like that. You are wonderful, John. You are a good husband. It's not about you. It's about me. I messed up. I am broken, I guess. She started to cry again. Her words felt hollow. If you were feeling that way, Sarah, why didn't you talk to me? Why didn't you say something? Why didn't you come to me and say, I feel lonely. I feel overlooked. I need more from you. She just shook her head, unable to answer. Because it was easier to lie, I finished for her. It was easier to escape into a fantasy with another man than to actually work on our marriage. The weight of her deception, the cold, calculated nature of her lies, settled over me. It wasn't just a moment of weakness. It was a sustained pattern of deceit. Every time she'd said she was out with friends, every late night at the book club, every excuse, it was all a lie. The realization was sickening. I felt like an idiot, blind to the signs that were probably there all along. How could you do this to us? I whispered, my voice breaking. How could you do this to me? She just stood there, her duffel bag heavy in her hand, tears streaming down her face. There were no more answers, no more excuses. Just the raw, devastating truth. The lies had finally been stripped away, leaving behind a gaping wound that I didn't know how to heal. I watched her pack the last of her things, the finality of it crushing me. Outlife our shared dreams, it was all unraveling before my eyes. Exposed by a twisted prank that had laid bare the ultimate betrayal. After Sarah left, the silence in the house was deafening, but it was also a different kind of quiet. Not the tense, suffocating silence of her presence, but an empty, echoing quiet that amplified my grief. The anger was still a raw wound, but the questions about her friends, Lisa and Chloe, gnawed at me even more. They knew. They didn't tell me. Instead, they chose this nuclear option. I needed answers from them. I found Lisa's number in my phone, a contact I'd never imagined I'd call for something like this. My finger hovered over the dial button. What would I say? How would I even begin? I called her. It rang twice before she picked up, her voice sounding tentative. John, is everything okay? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping. No, Lisa, everything is not okay. My life is falling apart. My wife left because she was caught cheating, and you and Chloe were responsible for it. You reported my car stolen, knowing full well Mark was in it. What the hell were you thinking? There was a long silence on the other end, then a shaky sigh. John, I am so sorry. I knew this would hurt you, but we didn't know what else to do. You didn't know what else to do? I repeated, my voice rising. How about telling me directly? How about a simple phone call? Hey John, your wife is cheating on you. Instead, you call the police. You risk getting an innocent man arrested. You expose her in the most public, humiliating way possible. He's not innocent, John. He's the other man. Lisa's voice rose in pitch, defensive now. And Sarah wouldn't listen to us. We tried. We begged her to stop seeing him. We told her she was going to destroy her marriage. We told her to tell you, but she just kept lying, kept sneaking around. She said she couldn't stop. We saw how much pain she was in, how guilty she felt. but she just kept going back to him. We thought if we made the consequences unavoidable, if you found out this way, it would finally force her to end it. Her words painted a complicated picture. They weren't just malicious, they were desperate. Misguided certainly, but perhaps with a twisted logic. So this was your intervention? I asked, the irony not lost on me. Exposing her to the police, publicly humiliating her, and by extension, me. We just wanted her to stop, John. We wanted her to realize what she was losing. We wanted to save your marriage. Lisa said, her voice cracking. We thought if you found out, she'd finally choose you. And you thought lying to the police was the best way to save my marriage? I asked, shaking my head. Did you ever consider coming to me first? Did you ever consider what this would do to me, to us, to her reputation, to Mark's? We were afraid, Lisa admitted, her voice dropping. Afraid of Sarah. Afraid of her reaction. Afraid of being the ones to deliver the news to you. We thought if the police found them, it would be an objective truth, undeniable. And it was. Her explanation, while still infuriating, carried a sliver of desperate truth. They were Sarah's friends, and they had seen her spiraling. They had made a terrible, irreversible choice in how to handle it. It didn't excuse their actions, but it explained them. They thought they were helping, even as they were destroying. So, how long did you know? I asked. The question I hadn't dared to ask Sarah. A few weeks. Maybe a month. Sarah was getting more and more secretive, always on her phone. Then Chloe saw them together one day, just grabbing coffee. But the way they were looking at each other, it was obvious. We confronted her, and she broke down and told us everything. She swore she'd stop, but she never did. She just kept going back to him. The timeline added another layer of pain. For weeks, they had been keeping this secret from me. Weeks of dinners, of casual conversations, of shared laughs. All while they knew the truth about my wife's infidelity. The betrayal wasn't just Sarah's, it was also theirs. They were my friends too, or so I thought. You should have told me, I said, my voice heavy with disappointment. You should have come to me. You put an innocent man through hell, and you exposed Sarah and me to a public humiliation that will follow us forever. This isn't saving a marriage, Lisa. This is tearing it apart. I know, John, she whispered. I know we messed up. I am so sorry, I don't know what else to say. T here is nothing else to say, I replied, my voice flat. Just know that your help has destroyed everything. T here is no coming back from this. I hung up the phone before she could say anything else. Conversation with Lisa didn't bring peace. It brought a fresh wave of agony. It wasn't just Sarah's betrayal, but the betrayal of the people I thought were our friends. They had known, they had kept it from me, and they had orchestrated a shocking revelation that left me devastated. The prank was no longer a silly misunderstanding. It was a calculated, desperate, and ultimately destructive act that had blown up my entire life. Everyone knew but me. And now, the whole world would know. The days that followed Sarah's departure were a blur of raw emotion and grim reality. The house, once filled with laughter and shared moments, felt cold and hollow. Her absence was a gaping void, but her presence when she was here had been a lie. I felt constantly on edge, like a wound that wouldn't close. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, my mind replaying every conversation, every interaction, searching for clues I'd missed. The legal part started almost immediately. Officer Thompson had been surprisingly understanding, given the circumstances. He explained that since Mark Henderson was not actually stealing the car, and Sarah confirmed he had permission to be in it, no theft charges would be filed. However, a false police report had been made, Given the sensitive domestic nature, they would not pursue charges against Lisa. But they gave her a stern warning. It was a small mercy, I suppose, but it did little to ease my pain. The police had closed their case, but mine was just beginning. I contacted a lawyer the next day. It was a painful, humiliating conversation, explaining that my wife was caught with her lover in my car because her friends reported it stolen. Felt like a scene from a bad movie. The lawyer, a kind older woman named Miss Evans, listened patiently, her expression sympathetic. "Given the circumstances, Mr. Miller," she said, her voice gentle, "it's clear that the marriage has suffered an irreparable breakdown. We can proceed with a divorce filing based on irreconcilable differences, or, if you prefer, on grounds of adultery." Adultery. The word hung in the air, clinical and stark, yet it perfectly encapsulated the devastating reality. I chose irreconcilable differences. I didn't want to drag Sarah's infidelity through the courts any more than necessary, even if she deserved it. I just wanted it over. The news, as it always does in small towns, spread like wildfire. Whispers followed me at the grocery store. Acquaintances would either look away or offer pitying glances. Colleagues at work were hesitant around me, unsure of what to say. Public humiliation was almost as bad as the private pain. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and utterly alone. I stopped going to my usual coffee shop, avoiding the place where I often saw Lisa or Chloe. I couldn't face them, couldn't reconcile their attempt to help with the sheer devastation they had caused. They had shattered my life, albeit indirectly, and I couldn't forgive them. The physical toll was immense. I lost weight. My appetite vanished. I'd pick at food, but nothing tasted right. My chest ached constantly, a dull, persistent pain. Headaches pounded behind my eyes. I felt perpetually exhausted, yet unable to rest. My concentration at work plummeted. I'd stare at my computer screen, seeing nothing, my mind drifting back to Sarah, to Mark, to the moment the phone rang. I kept replaying our entire marriage in my head. Had there been signs? Had I been so blind? I remembered Sarah becoming more secretive with her phone, locking it more frequently. Her occasional late nights, her excuses seemed flimsy now. Paper-thin lies. I remembered moments when she seemed distant, lost in thought. I'd attributed it to stress, to her own work pressures. Now I saw it was something else entirely. The realization made me feel foolish, stupid, for having trusted so completely. Sometimes a wave of nostalgia would wash over me. Memories of happier times. Our wedding day, her laugh, the way she used to squeeze my hand when we walked. Plans we made for the future. A trip to Italy, renovating the kitchen, having kids. These memories, once precious, were now tainted, poisoned by the knowledge of her betrayal. They were no longer sweet recollections, but bitter reminders of what I had lost. One evening I found myself sitting in the dark living room, staring at our wedding photo on the mantelpiece. Sarah, radiant in her white dress, smiling at me, her eyes full of love. Was it all a lie? Was any of it real? Pain was so intense it felt physical, like my heart was literally breaking in my chest. The weight of it all was crushing. I knew the marriage was over. There was no going back, no fixing this. The trust was shattered beyond repair. The foundation of our relationship, built on honesty and commitment, had crumbled. The path ahead was uncertain, lonely, and filled with a profound sense of loss. But I also knew, with a grim determination, that I had to walk it. I had to survive this. The isolation of those first few weeks was almost as devastating as the betrayal itself. I felt like I was drowning, utterly alone in a sea of grief and anger. I knew I couldn't stay in that dark, solitary place forever. I needed to reach out. My first call was to my older brother David. He lived a few states away, but we'd always been close. I told him everything, stumbling over the words, the humiliation burning my cheeks even though he couldn't see me. David listened, his silence a comforting presence on the other end of the line. "John," he finally said, his voice quiet but firm. "I'm so sorry, man. That's truly awful. You don't deserve that, nobody does." His anger for me was palpable, a balm to my own swirling emotions. "Are you staying with a friend? Do you need anything?" "I can be there by tomorrow morning if you need me to." His offer of immediate support was a lifeline. I told him I was in the house, just trying to figure things out. He insisted I let him know if I needed anything. Anything at all. Just knowing he was there, ready to drop everything, was a comfort. I also reached out to my best friend Mike. He was shocked, furious on my behalf. "That B word," he exploded when I told him about Sarah. "And her friends? What kind of messed up prank is that? They should be ashamed of themselves." His outrage was a mirror of my own, validating my feelings, making me feel less like I was overreacting. Came over that evening bringing pizza and a six-pack, and we just sat, talking and not talking, his presence a quiet strength. The hardest part was explaining it. Each time I recounted the story, the car, the police, Mark, the prank, the affair. It felt like reliving it all over again, reopening the wound, but each time, a tiny bit of the shame lifted. I wasn't hiding it, I was facing it, and the reactions of my loved ones, their unconditional support and anger, on my behalf, slowly chipped away at the crushing isolation. I even had an unexpected encounter. I was at the grocery store, grabbing some essentials, when I saw Mark Henderson. He was pushing a cart, looking just as haggard as I felt. Our eyes met across an aisle. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air crackled with unspoken words. Then he slowly pushed his cart towards me. "John," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. He looked genuinely remorseful. I just wanted to say I am truly sorry. About all of this. I never meant for any of this to happen. I knew she was married. It was wrong. I messed up." I stared at him, hatred welling up, but also a strange sense of exhaustion. What could I say? Yell at him? Punch him? It wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't erase the pain. "Sorry doesn't fix it, Mark," I said, my voice flat. "You knew. You chose to do it anyway. You broke my marriage. You shattered my life." He nodded slowly, his shoulders slumping. "I know. I won't try to make excuses. I hope you can find peace eventually." "I really do. She told me she was going to end things with me before this happened. She said she felt awful about it all." It got out of hand. "Get out of my sight," I said, unable to prolong the conversation. He nodded again, turned his cart and walked away. The encounter left me feeling hollow, not angry, just empty. He was just a man who had made a bad choice, caught up in Sarah's own choices. He was a catalyst, but Sarah was the betrayer. I started trying to cope. Mike encouraged me to get back to my hobbies. I picked up my old guitar, fingers clumsy and stiff at first, but the familiar chords were a small comfort. I started going for long runs, pounding the pavement until my legs burned, using the physical exertion to exhaust the mental turmoil. Didn't make the pain disappear, but it helped to dull the edges. I also started therapy. It was awkward at first, sitting in a stranger's office, recounting the most painful event of my life. But my therapist, Dr. Lee, was patient and understanding. She helped me articulate the complex emotions I was feeling. The anger, the grief, the shame, the confusion, the self-doubt. She validated my pain, assuring me that my feelings were normal, that what I was experiencing was a form of trauma. Slowly, imperceptibly, I started to feel a tiny shift, a crack of light in the darkness. Pain was still there, a constant companion, but it wasn't consuming me whole anymore. I was taking small, hesitant steps forward, trying to rebuild a life that had been utterly devastated. It was an uphill battle, but for the first time since that fateful phone call, I started to believe that I might actually survive this. The therapy sessions became a crucial part of my healing. Dr. Lee helped me unpack the layers of betrayal, not just from Sarah, but also from her friends. Talked about the insidious nature of infidelity, how it chips away at your sense of reality, making you question everything you thought was true about your life and yourself. Common for victims of betrayal to blame themselves, Dr. Lee said one session. To think, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough? But John, her choices were hers alone. Her feelings of neglect, whether real or perceived, were her responsibility to communicate to you, not to act upon in secret. Her words were a much-needed antidote to the self-doubt that had plagued me. I started to see that I wasn't responsible for Sarah's choices. I had been a loving and committed husband. Her actions were a reflection of her own issues, not a deficiency in me. This realization was freeing, a weight lifted from my shoulders. But the anger towards Lisa and Chloe lingered. They had known, they had kept silent, and then they had orchestrated a public spectacle. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Was it truly an attempt to help Sarah, a misguided intervention, as Lisa claimed? Or was there an element of judgment, a desire to punish Sarah, or even to stir drama? I found myself replaying Lisa's words. "We wanted to save your marriage." It sounded so noble, yet the execution was so brutal. If they truly wanted to save my marriage, why didn't they come to me directly? Why didn't they warn me? I understood their fear of Sarah, but it didn't excuse their choice to expose her in a way that shattered my trust in them. One afternoon, Chloe called me. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Her voice was small, hesitant. "John, it's Chloe. I wanted to say I am so sorry. I know it doesn't make things better, but I feel awful about what happened." "You knew, Chloe," I said, my voice flat. "You knew for weeks, and you didn't say a word. Instead, you helped Lisa plan this elaborate disaster." "I know," she whispered, "and I hate myself for it. We were so conflicted. Sarah was our friend. We wanted her to stop. We saw her destroying her life and yours. We thought if you found out, it would be the wake-up call she needed. We were trying to be loyal to both of you in our own messed-up way. We thought it would hurt less if it came from an official source, rather than us telling tales behind her back. We knew it was crazy, but she just wouldn't listen. She promised she'd end it so many times, but she never did." Her explanation mirrored Lisa's, adding another layer of complexity. They truly believed they were acting in my best interest, in Sarah's best interest, even as they plunged me into an abyss of pain. It was a misguided attempt at loyalty and intervention, a catastrophic failure of judgment rather than pure malice. But the outcome was the same. It still destroyed everything, Chloe, I said, my voice weary. My marriage is over. My trust in Sarah is gone. And my trust in you and Lisa is gone too. How could I ever be friends with people who kept such a devastating secret from me, and then chose to expose it in such a public, painful way? I don't know, John, she said, her voice full of genuine sorrow. I guess you can't. I just hope that one day you can forgive us, or at least understand why we did what we did. Forgiveness. The word felt like a mountain too high to climb. Could I forgive Sarah? Could I forgive her friends? The wounds were too fresh, too deep. Forgiveness felt like a betrayal of my own pain, an invalidation of what I had endured. Dr. Lee had explained that forgiveness wasn't about excusing the behavior of others, but about releasing myself from the grip of anger and resentment. It was a process, she said, not a single decision. I wasn't ready, not yet. Maybe never for Sarah. Maybe for her friends one day, in a very distant future. But I knew I couldn't continue in a relationship, or even a friendship, where trust had been so fundamentally shattered. Sarah had made a few attempts to reach out, to apologize, to suggest reconciliation. Each time I declined. The image of Mark in my car, of the lies she'd woven, was too vivid, too painful. There was no going back. Our shared life was over. The divorce papers were slowly moving through the system. I started to realize that closure wasn't a neat package I could tie up with a bow. It was a messy, ongoing process. The pain would likely always be a part of me, a scar. But I was determined that it wouldn't define me. I had to focus on rebuilding, on finding a new path forward, even if I was walking it alone. The weight of the betrayal was still heavy, but I was slowly learning how to carry it, how to live with it, and how to start finding my way back to myself. The process of divorce was slow and draining, each step a painful reminder of what had been lost. Dividing assets, going through old photos, clearing out shared spaces. It was like dismantling a life, piece by piece. The house, once filled with our shared memories, now felt like a monument to a past that was both cherished and utterly broken. Sarah and I communicated only through our lawyers, a sterile formality that suited the cold distance between us. My focus, as Dr. Lee advised, shifted inward. I started to make myself a priority again. I joined a new gym, away from the old one, away from any potential encounters with Mark. I started lifting weights, channeling my anger and frustration into physical exertion. The muscle soreness was a welcome distraction from the emotional ache. I also rediscovered old hobbies I'd let slide. I started painting again, something I'd loved in college but abandoned after marriage. The act of mixing colors, of creating something new on a blank canvas, was cathartic. It was a way to express the turmoil inside me, to create beauty out of chaos. I joined a local hiking club, venturing out into nature, letting the vastness of the mountains and forests put my own problems into perspective. The fresh air and the company of new people who knew nothing of my past were incredibly refreshing. I wasn't ready to date, not yet. The idea of trusting someone new, of opening myself up to that kind of vulnerability again, felt terrifying, but I was learning to enjoy my own company. I cooked for myself, tried new recipes, read books, watched movies. I learned to be comfortable in my own space, in my own skin, without the constant need for another person to validate my existence. There were still bad days, of course. Days when the grief would hit me like a tidal wave, when I'd find myself staring blankly at a wall, lost in thought, tears welling up without warning. Holidays were particularly hard, our first Thanksgiving apart, then Christmas. These were traditions we'd built together, and now they felt hollow. But even on those days, I noticed a subtle difference. The despair no longer lasted as long. The tears eventually dried, and I found myself, more often than not, pulling myself back up, putting one foot in front of the other. One day I was at a coffee shop in a different part of town when I saw Lisa. She was sitting at a table with a friend, laughing. Our eyes met, and her smile faltered. For a moment, I considered turning around, walking away. But then, I felt a strange sense of calm. The anger, though still present, didn't burn with the same intensity. She got up and walked towards me. "John," she said, her voice soft, tentative. "Lisa," I acknowledged, my voice neutral. "How are you?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "I am getting there," I said. "It's a long process. I really am so sorry, John," she repeated. "About everything. I know it doesn't mean much now, but I think about it every day." I looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time since that phone call. She looked tired, a shadow of her former boisterous self. I saw the guilt in her eyes, the genuine regret. "I know you thought you were helping," I said, my voice quiet. "And maybe in a twisted way you were. You forced a truth that needed to come out. But the way you did it, it broke so much. Not just Sarah and me, but our friendships too." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. I really do. I just wanted to tell you how truly sorry I am for the pain I caused you." "I appreciate that, Lisa," I said. "But it's going to take a long time for me to process all of this, and to trust again." She nodded, her shoulders slumping. "I know. Take care, John." She turned and walked back to her table. The encounter didn't magically heal anything, but it was a moment of unexpected closure. I had said what I needed to say, and she had received it without argument. I didn't feel a sudden rush of forgiveness, but the encounter felt clean. It solidified my boundaries. I couldn't be friends with her, not after this, but I could acknowledge her remorse. I was slowly, painstakingly, rebuilding my life from the rubble. It was a painful, often lonely journey, but with each step I felt stronger, more resilient. I was learning that true strength wasn't about avoiding pain, but about enduring it, learning from it, and eventually rising above it. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. I was still standing, I was still breathing, and I was learning to live again. It's been a year and a half since that night. A year and a half since the phone call that ripped my world apart. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. The house, once a source of comfort, then a painful reminder, now feels like my own space again. I've redecorated parts of it, slowly erasing the ghosts of the past, making it truly mine. The immediate searing pain has dulled to a persistent ache, like an old injury that occasionally flares up but no longer dictates my every move. The deep heartbreak is still there, a part of my story, but it no longer consumes me. I've learned to live with the scars. They remind me of what I've endured and what I've overcome. My relationship with Sarah is non-existent. We have no reason to communicate, and I haven't sought one. I hear through mutual acquaintances that she's moved to another city. A fresh start, perhaps. I don't know if she's still with Mark. And frankly, I don't care. My focus is on my own life, my own healing. As for Lisa and Chloe, the initial anger has softened into a resigned understanding. I still don't communicate with them. I've accepted that the friendship, at least the kind of friendship we had, is irrevocably broken. Their actions, however misguided, exposed a deeper rot in my marriage. And for that, I can grudgingly acknowledge that their prank, while devastating, led me to a truth I needed to face. It was a brutal wake-up call, a painful, necessary surgery. I've met new people through my hobbies, at the gym and through work. Some have become good friends. They know part of my story, but I don't lead with the drama. I share it when I feel comfortable, when it feels relevant. And the support I've received from my brother David and my best friend Mike has been unwavering. They were my anchors during the storm, and I am eternally grateful for them. I've even tentatively started dating again. It's scary, putting myself out there, risking vulnerability. The trust issues are real. Every time I meet someone new, a part of me holds back, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I am also open. I am honest about my past, about what I've been through. I've learned that true connection requires authenticity. And if someone can't handle my story, they're not the right person for my future. I still attend therapy sessions occasionally. Dr. Lee has helped me process the lingering effects of the trauma, the fear of future betrayal, the difficulty in trusting again. She's taught me strategies for coping, for setting boundaries, for prioritizing my own well-being. I've learned that healing isn't a linear path, but a journey with ups and downs, setbacks and small victories. The prank that blew up my life was, ironically, the catalyst for a profound transformation. It forced me to confront uncomfortable truths about my marriage, about trust, and about myself. It was the hardest experience of my life, a deep, soul-crushing heartbreak. But it also stripped away the illusions, revealing the strength and resilience I didn't know I possessed. I am a different man now, wiser certainly, more cautious perhaps, but also more self-aware, more independent, and more appreciative of genuine connection. Pain of the past will always be a part of me, a reminder of the fragility of life and relationships. But it no longer defines me. I carry it with me, not as a burden, but as a lesson. The sun is setting as I look out my living room window, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The house is quiet, but it's a peaceful quiet now, not an empty one. My car is parked in the driveway, just where it should be. No one else is in it. And for the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of calm, a quiet optimism for whatever the future holds. I am moving forward, one step at a time towards a new horizon. My heart may have been broken, but it's slowly, surely mending.